Ex-mother-in-law and sister-in-law showed up with 15 people demanding my house but left furious after I showed them the legal papers. It has been almost a year since my husband and I divorced. Actually, it was not as bad as you think. He wanted something else. I wanted something else. There was mutual understanding between us and so we parted ways. I met with my now ex-husband when I was in school. He came and sat right next to me on the school bus and I liked it very much because I had a crush on him since forever. He played in the school football team and was also in the school choir. He was the typical jock kid that every woman put their eyes on. In my mind, I always thought that I could never befriend a person like that. After all, look at him and look at me. Negative conceptions. After talking on the bus that day, I felt familiar with him. It was like I had kept this boy on the pedestal all these days and now I actually get to interact with him. It was very interesting to engage in conversations with him because as the typical US teenage TV show depicts a young schoolboy, he was not really like that. He had a world of his own privy to the public eye. He liked watching cinema and loved to read literature. It was as if the whole world knew him as something else and in reality, he was very different from what other people thought him to be. Our conversations would be more on the intellectual spectrum as we would talk about philosophy and sometimes about the opposite genders. It felt like he was really close to me but the day I discovered that he had a girlfriend, I maintained a distance. Conversation would not take place that very often and I found myself to get very intimidated by him and was not able to keep my eyes peeled on him while we talked. Soon, time crossed by and situations changed. When I was leaving for college, obviously, I was very sad because I had to leave my family and my relatives and venture off into a new space. He comes to my house suddenly and tells me that things grew weird over time but now everything was sorted. He broke up and he really wanted us to remain friends even though he knew there will be a lapse of communication, since people are going to stray off from one another. I was listening to him astounded but I found myself not very happy when he said that he broke up with his girlfriend when I should have been jumping with joy, now that I have finally gotten a chance. I believe that this incident brought us closer than ever. There were romantic feelings around but you know what, we did the best thing that two teenagers could do, push those feelings into the abyss and never ever talk about it. We left for college. Although interactions had decreased between us, we still made time to talk to each other and talk about life in general. This one day, I hopped on a video call in him and I saw that his face had dropped down. He was looking tired and really wanted to say something and get it over with. I had no idea he was going to say this but the words I had yearned to listen a major part in life were finally said that day. He became fidgety and said that he had liked me for ages and could not bring the courage to confess it to me. I started crying and said that I also felt the same way about him and that I did not intervene because I did not think that he would want to settle for a girl like me and I wanted forever to be in a relationship with him. It was a good day. I ended the call on a good note but in my heart, there was one bulb which kept flickering. It was the one concerned with the long-distance relationship 3,000 miles apart. Over the years, we met a few times and soon, following that, on December, he proposed to me and I agreed. It was a good amount of time spent with ups and downs between each other. He got a job abroad and the problem was I did not want to accompany him because I had a job of my own here and let's be honest, we were both in our late 20s but our career choices were way more mature than we were. I did not like signing those papers and for the second time, I saw my husband cry. The first time was when we got married. He looked at me and just broke down. I went to console him and told me that he was so blessed that he could have me in his life. The sky was gray and so were our hearts when the piece of paper confirmed a 3-year married life and 7 years of knowing each other. I missed him more because he was my family when we stayed together. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law were poor creatures who loved sucking out the fun out of everything and being happy for making people look inferior in front of them. You could not talk with them about any of your problems. Obviously their problems are bigger than yours and people have to accept it. My ex-husband used to tell them to work upon themselves as this depicted a degrading human nature. I did not try to think about such trivial matters all the time but when you see your mother getting bullied by 2 grown women who do not care about the feelings of the other person, you have to speak up. I remember the first time our families visited our house. I cooked for everyone. While eating, my mother-in-law passed a comment on the type of food I had made. She used sarcasm all throughout and termed it as the poor man's food. My mother revolted but in a calm manner. She said that she did not think that the food was undignified and found it to be tasty. I do not remember what my sister-in-law said but it was very insulting. I could see that my mother's nerves were popping up in her forehead and as for my father, everyone could see his fist very distinctively. My ex-husband protested and told them to shut up and enjoy the meal. Although it became awkward and conflicting, we tried our best to handle the situation but you know what happens in these situations. Both the families strayed clear away from each other. It was very disappointing to see. I told you about my marriage and divorce because it is important to what happened to me last week. So, in the divorce, I got our house. My ex-husband went abroad, so in our divorce settlement, I got the house and he got the car. He left, and like that, everything went away. I cried for an entire week after our divorce, but then I thought to myself that it is of no use to just lie down and cry. I joined back at work and started maintaining my mental health. Until last week. I woke up to the ringing of the bell and the sound of pounding in the door. It felt like if I did not open the door right now, then whoever was on the other side would just break in. I opened the door and the view blew me away. Almost 15 people made their way inside, and suddenly there are 15 people in the living room. Amongst them was my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. They produced a document and told me that I had an hour to empty the place as they are the new proprietors of this house. I said that they have made a mistake and this conversation could have happened in private since it is a family matter. They said that the house was theirs as my ex-husband had written to give this house to my mother-in-law when he left the country. Now, the thing is, it is true that I got the house in the settlement, but before, one day we were talking about what possessions we will leave to the next generation. My ex-husband told that he is going to write off the house in the name of his mother, as although her nature was lousy, she had seen way too much in her life and thus, she is the one who will prove to be some use with the house. Now the thing is, when I got the house, I got it corrected to my name. I even had the legal documents for it. They were continuously saying that my husband has left it for me when technically, I do not have a husband anymore and the house is mine. Upon showing the document, their faces dropped and I politely asked them to get out or stay for breakfast, as today I was going to make pancakes. Every one of them left the house immediately and I could see that my mother-in-law and sister-in-law were fuming. Now that I have handled the situation, I blame myself for taking the spot my ex-husband wanted his mother to take. Am I the a-hole for disrespecting my mother in front of a bunch of strangers, whereas I could have handled the situation more appropriately? Update 1. It has been 2 months since the incident. I got a job at an advertising agency. I had been doing quite well for myself. I reconnected with some old friends and meet with them on a regular basis. Last week, my mother-in-law and son-in-law visited my place and we shared a cup of coffee and talked. There was no animosity between us, but it felt like they had started to ease around me. As for my ex-husband, we still talk a little. I heard that he is dating this beautiful girl and I really do wish him the best. I have also befriended a guy in work. Although there are no romantic feelings involved, it feels good whenever I talk to him. Background: me, 32 female, my dad, 59 male, my sister, 21 female, my aunt and uncle, 57 female and 61 male, my cousin, 28 male, my cousin's wife, 26 female, my cousin's son from a prior relationship, 7 male, and my cousin's son with his current wife, 2 male. We all rented a cabin on a lake for family vacation. The cabin has 5 bedrooms. My sister and I shared one. Aunt and uncle got one. My dad got his own. Cousin and wife got one. Kids in the remaining room. This was my first time seeing my cousin and his wife since their wedding. The first day we all get settled and my sister and I change to go get in the water while the sun is out. My cousin's wife asks us to take the kids. I say we can take the older boy, haven't seen him in a while, since he can swim and just needs to be supervised, but not the toddler because he can't swim, so would need to be held while in the water and still within arm's reach when not in the water, so we wouldn't be able to relax. She argued that it was fine because there were 2 of us, but we said no and just took the older boy. We all went out to dinner that night. The toddler was upset and my cousin ended up taking him back to the cabin. When we all got back, my cousin's wife asked us to watch the toddler so she and cousin could have alone time. We were all tired and all declined. For the next 2 days, the cousin's wife was always trying to get someone to watch both kids so she could be alone with her husband. For one reason or another we were always too busy for both kids at the same time. We were trying to enjoy our vacation. Finally, my cousin's wife blew up at me, my sister and my aunt, uncle and dad were fishing, while we were sitting on the porch drinking in the afternoon. She said she'd been trying for days just to have a little alone time with her husband to work on their relationship and recapture the spark, but we were all selfish, unhelpful a-holes. She demanded my cousin pack up so they could leave. My cousin tried to persuade her to stay. I said I would watch the kids if they really needed it, but she said no because I was drunk, not really, but maybe too buzzed for babysitting a toddler, and it was too little, too late. They all ended up leaving. The house is so quiet without the kids. My aunt and I feel like garbage. We really miss them. My sister and dad said to let it go and she's crazy. But we feel so terrible. I think she could have communicated better, but were we the a-holes here? Update: we got the oldest kid back. My cousin dropped him off. He's taking his wife home with the baby and then coming back, although it's unclear if he's coming back for the whole vacation or just at the end to get his son. My aunt said not to say anything when he gets here. Honestly, I think there's definitely something going on in their relationship. But yeah, I'm glad to have at least one kid back. My sister and I are taking him on a hike. So, it could have turned out better but could have turned out worse. Update 2, my cousin came back. And he brought the baby back. His wife is still at home, but no one is allowed to mention it or ask him about it. He hasn't said anything about her. 26 female, my sister, 22 female, Angela became pregnant with my nephew, 3 male, Lincoln the summer she graduated high school. Lincoln's father is not in the picture. She had 2 possible guys who she believed could be Lincoln's father, but neither of them was. I have nothing against single moms who have kids early, but for Angela getting pregnant right out of high school possibly explains her attitude of how she should party while older people are responsible for Lincoln. Since Lincoln was 6 months old, Angela has never stayed at home with him for more than 3 days a week. Before, her go-to was to leave Lincoln with either my mom or aunt. But my mom's health has declined recently and my aunt moved for her husband's work, so now I'm Angela's go-to. At maximum, Angela will give me a half-hour notice that she's dropping off Lincoln at my house. Usually, there is no notice and Angela just knocks on my door with Lincoln. Angela has no consideration for what I have/want to do. She's fortunate that I work a desk job and have my own cubicle. I'm able to keep Lincoln occupied with a DVD player and my coworkers don't mind as Lincoln is pretty quiet/calm anyway. I have been telling Angela since she started doing this that she needs to step up and be a mom because she can't expect me to always be Lincoln's sitter and parents don't get to party all week long. Angela just will make excuses how moms are entitled to have fun without their kids too and young people don't get that much time to live life before getting old, but she would do it anyway. Angela never followed through and the last straw was when she came to my house and just dumped Lincoln and his stuff off while informing me that she and her friends were going to Myrtle Beach for the next 3 days. I had Lincoln wait in a different room with some earbuds and then blew up on Angela that she should just put Lincoln up for adoption since she gives 0 shits about being a mom. I also told her I would help with Lincoln for 3 more weeks while she worked out some long-term childcare options. Then after that if she tries to dump Lincoln on me again I will call child services on her. I am fully prepared to do it. We argued before she eventually took Lincoln back and left. My friends agree that even though it's a last resort, I should be prepared to do it because I can't spend Lincoln's whole life dropping everything to babysit him and Angela needs to get her shit together. However, my other family members are saying that it is going way too far to even think about calling child services on Angela because she's family and she's a young woman who it's unfair to have her entire life revolve around a child. They and Angela all look down on adoption because you rehome dogs, not babies. And as I mentioned, my mom is in poor health, and since I plan to stay child-free, I would throw away her likely one opportunity to watch a grandchild grow up. Am I the a-hole for being prepared to call child services on my sister anyway?